Ndidi was one of the most promising young women in the village of Uzuma. At 24 years old, she was not only beautiful, but also wise and admired by many. She had grown up in a well respected family, though their lives had not been without challenges. Her father had been bedridden and mute since she was 7, a condition that placed the weight of the family's welfare on her mother, Mama Iji. Despite these difficulties, Mama Iji's resilience and care ensured that the family never lacked or lost the respect of their peers. Ndidi's elder sister, Nancy, was a force of nature herself. Despite the mysterious tragedies that befell her, three husbands, each lost either to sudden death or unexplained disappearances, Nancy thrived. She owned one of the largest clay pot shops in the village. Though her marriages never lasted for more than 2 years, her charisma and beauty kept men flocking to her. The whispers of bad luck did little to deter her admirers. Ndidi, on the other hand, had never been married. Recently, she had completed the village's ceremonial induction into womanhood, a rite of passage marking her readiness for marriage. It was a moment of great pride for her mother. My daughter, Mama Iji had said with a beaming smile, congratulations on becoming a complete woman. Now you are ready to marry and take your place in a family of your own. But Ndidi's heart was elsewhere. Haba, Mama, she protested. You know I'm not ready for that. Mama Iji's face fell. What do you mean you are not ready? What do you want to do with your life if not marry? Mama, you know I've always wanted to perfect my skills at Mama Uka's clothes making shop. I've been learning, but I need more time to become truly skilled. Mama Iji shook her head in disbelief. But you've already been there for so long. Is it not enough? Enough? How can I live with only half the knowledge, Mama? I want to master the crafts, Ndidi insisted. Her mother's tone hardened. You can continue learning after you marry. Besides, if you marry Namdi, you won't even need to work. He is wealthy enough to provide everything you ever need. Ndidi's expression darkened. Mama, stop it. I will never marry that man. Why not? Mama Eji's voice rose with anger. What is wrong with Namdi? You will not marry my friend's son? That is exactly why, Ndidi retorted, her voice trembling. We both know there is something. Will you shut your mouth? Mama Iji cut her off sharply. And what? What nonsense do you want to say about that family? You this girl, you are asking for my trouble. You better get ready to marry Namdi and take your mind off that shop of yours. With that, she stormed out of the room, leaving Ndidi fuming. Ndidi's heart was heavy. She had always known that her dreams and desires would one day clash with tradition and her family's expectations. But she hadn't imagined it to come so soon or so fiercely. She resolved that she would not let anyone dictate her life. The thought of marrying Namdi, a man whose family had long been rumored to harbor dark secrets, filled her with dread. She had seen the airy way his mother's eyes lingered on her whenever they crossed paths. That night, Ndidi sat by the small lantern in her room, her mind racing. Mama Iji's words echoed in her mind, "You're asking for my trouble." But she also knew she could not abandon her dreams. Let it come, Ndidi whispered to herself. Let the trouble come. Ndidi's days continued as usual after her conversation with Mama Iji. But she remained steadfast in her decision to go to the sewing shop. There she found happiness and fulfillment, always eager to learn. Madam Uka, as the owner of the shop was popularly called, was a well-respected figure in the village, known for her exceptional craft and generosity. She had impacted many lives by teaching the art of cloth making. One morning, Madam Uka approached Ndidi with a warm smile. Ndidi, congratulations on your induction. I'm sorry I wasn't there to cheer you on. You know I had just returned from the Efa Clothes Market Festival in the neighboring village. Oh yes, that's true, ma, Ndidi replied, remembering their earlier conversation. You mentioned it last time. I hope you enjoyed the festival. I did, Madam Uka said, her eyes lighting up. And I didn't go alone. Ima came with me. Speaking of Ima, he asked me to give this to you. She handed Ndidi a beautifully woven bag. Oh, that's really nice of him, Ndidi said, accepting the bag with a smile. As she admired it, the other apprentices looked on in awe. Madam Uka, does Oga Ima like Ndidi? one of the apprentices asked with a mischievous grin. He's always giving her gifts and looking out for her. Madame Uka chuckled along with the girls. Well, they are both grown enough to make their own decisions. But honestly, I wouldn't mind having the beautiful Ndidi as my daughter-in-law, she said, glancing at Ndidi who was smiling shyly. You all should mind your business, Ndidi said, trying to suppress a laugh. There is nothing happening between us. Oga Emma is just being nice. Besides, we've known each other since childhood. She sat down in front of one of the sewing machines, eager to begin her work. The rest of the apprentices burst into laughter before returning to their tasks. The room buzzed with cheerful energy as they focused on their sewing, their camaraderie filling the air with warmth. After a long day at work, Ndidi managed to drag her tired self home. As she approached the compound, she saw Mama Namdi and her mother standing outside, engaged in what appeared to be a very serious conversation. Her mother's tense expression caught Ndidi's attention. As she got closer, she greeted them both respectfully, kneeling on the ground. Good evening, ma. Good evening, Mama. Are you just returning from the shop, my daughter? Mama Namdi asked with a smile. Yes, ma, Ndidi replied. Oh, look at you. You look very tired. Get in and relax, Mama Namdi said warmly. Ndidi nodded, glancing at her mother, who managed a strange smile. Go in, you will find your food on the table, her mother said. As Ndidi entered the house, Mama Namdi's voice rose sharply behind her. I thought you said she had stopped going to that mad woman's shop. Yes, I've told her countless times not to go there again, but this child of mine is stubborn, her mother replied defensively. Please spare me the excuses. Are you saying you're not capable of controlling her? Mama Namdi demanded. No, that's not what I'm saying, her mother said hesitantly. Then make it happen, and let's move forward with the marriage plans. Mama Namdi said firmly, I will take my leave now. Inside, Ndidi was just about to start eating when her mother entered, her face dark with anger. Why have you chosen to embarrass me? Her mother said sharply. Ndidi, confused, looked up from her plate. What are you talking about, Mama? What did I do? Haven't I told you to leave that shop? But you insisted on disobeying me. Let me tell you, I am your mother, and you must follow my commands and wishes. Starting tomorrow, I don't want to see you leave the house. What? Ndidi exclaimed, her eyes wide with disbelief. Mama, please, you can't do that. I can, and I have. If I'm truly your mother, you will not leave this house tomorrow, her mother said with finality, hissing before walking out, leaving Ndidi sitting in stunned silence. The next morning, Ndidi didn't dare leave the house. Instead, she tried to persuade her mother to allow her go to the shop. But her mother remained firm in her decision. At the sewing shop, the other girls and Madame Uka grew concerned about Ndidi's absence. It was unlike her not to show up for work. Maybe she's not feeling too well, one of the girls suggested. I hope not, Madame Uka said, frowning. I'll check on her on my way home. You girls should continue with your work. True to her word, Mama Uka stopped by Ndidi's house on her way home. She found Mama Iji sitting outside. Good evening, Mama Iji, Mama Uka greeted warmly. What do you want? Mama Iji asked curtly. Haba, are we fighting, Mama Iji? I only came to check on Didi. She didn't come to work today, and I know how much she values her work, Madame Uka explained. Mama Iji stood up, her expression darkening. And so? Did the town crier announce a missing person? You this woman, leave my daughter alone. Let her live her life. What sort of accusation is this? Madam Muka asked, stunned. Please, Mama Iji, I don't want trouble. You asked for trouble the moment you took my daughter into your shop, Mama Iji shouted. I left you alone all this while, but not anymore. I don't want her learning from you again. Mama Uka tried to explain herself, but Mama Iji was not having it. Oya, leave my compound and don't return again, she yelled. Perplexed, Madame Uka left the compound, shaking her head in disbelief. As she walked home, she couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the situation than she understood. Is it more than this? Or is there something I don't know? She wondered aloud, troubled by the encounter. When Madame Uka got home, she narrated the entire incident to her son Ima. Mama, do you have unresolved quarrels with her? Why would she do that to you? Ima asked, his face a mix of confusion and concern. My son, I'm just as surprised as you are. But that is not the issue now. I'm more concerned about Ndidi. She's one of my best girls, Madam Muka said, her worry evident in her voice. Ima smiled faintly. Mama, I know you like her, just like I do. They both laughed. The tension momentarily eased. My son, I've known that for a long time now, Madame Uka said, her eyes twinkling. But why haven't you made your intentions clear to her? Mother, you know how she is, eager to perfect her skills. I'm just taking my time and letting her chase her dreams. I can't wait, Emma replied thoughtfully. Oh, that's my son, Madame Muka said, pride in her voice. You're a very thoughtful young man, but still, even if you both won't start anything serious yet, I think it's best to let her know your intentions. She's a beautiful and well mannered girl. I'm sure you're not the only man interested in her. True, Mama, I'll think about it, Emma said, nodding. Days passed, and Ndidi was still not allowed to go to the shop. She tried everything she could to persuade her mother, but Mama Iji wouldn't budge. Even her sister Nancy supported their mother's decision. With no one on her side, Ndidi felt hopeless but stood firm in her resolve not to marry Namdi. Mama can stop me from going to the shop, but marrying Namdi is out of the question, Didi said firmly as she walked on the weeds in the small farm behind the house. She was lost in thought when a voice startled her. Do you need help with that? She lifted her head and saw Emma standing there. Oh, it's you. When did you get here? She asked, glancing around nervously for any sign of her mother. Not too long ago, Emma replied with a reassuring smile. Don't worry, your mother isn't around. I saw her leave before coming here. They laughed softly. So you are stalking my mother now, she teased. They both laughed, the tension easing for a moment. I'm sorry about how my mother spoke to Madame Uka. Ndidi said, her tone apologetic. Oh, it's okay, Ma replied. Mama understands it's not your fault. But what happened? Why doesn't your mother want you to finish learning your skill? Ndidi sighed, lowering her gaze. Mama wants me to marry. She says I'm ready and prepared for marriage. She even found a groom for me. Emma's face grew serious. That's serious. So what would you do now? I really don't know, Ndidi admitted, frustration in her voice. But even if I have to marry, it will not be Nnamdi. She punctuated her words by splitting to the side. Ma hesitated for a moment, then asked quietly, What about me? Ndidi's eyes widened in surprise as she looked up at him. That's not funny, she said. But her voice was soft. No, Ndidi, it's not a joke, Ima said earnestly, stepping closer. I'm serious. I love you. I have for a very long time, and I know you can feel it too. Day's heart raced as she stared at him. After a moment, she nodded shyly. I like you too, she confessed, but my mother will never agree to this. Ima's expression didn't waver. We can run away, he said firmly. Run away? Didi repeated, shocked. Yes, I can take you to my father's village. You can finish learning your skills there. Away from all this pressure, Ima said, his voice filled with hope and determination. Ndidi stared at him, torn between fear and the stirring of a daring possibility she had never considered before. Later that night, Ndidi lay awake, her mind swirling with Emma's words and everything that had happened recently. She wondered if running away and leaving her family was truly the right thing to do. I can't do that, she muttered to herself. Can't do what? Nancy's voice interrupted her thoughts. Nancy sat down beside her on the bed, adjusting herself to get comfortable. Welcome, sister, Ndidi greeted. Thank God you are here, Nancy said. I came to talk to you. I heard you've been giving Mama problems. Problems? How, sister? Don't tell me you are also in support of me getting married. Yes, why not? Nancy said bluntly. You're of age and his family is rich. Sister, Ndidi said, her voice rising. You want me to marry the village joke? We all know how Namdi is. Stumbling from one palm wine stand to another. Apart from his family's money, what does he have? Money, Ndidi. He has money. Nancy replied, standing up, her tone sharp. You have to marry Namdi. Sister, we may not be as rich as them, but we both know we are not poor either. So why would you and Mama want me to marry for something we don't lack? Why not for love? Ndidi argued. Think whatever you want, Nancy said, lowering her voice. Mama has suffered for us. Do you want to disappoint her like this? Don't bring shame to us. Didi looked confused. What shame are you talking about? She asked. But Nancy didn't answer. Instead, she told Didi to stop asking questions and do as she was told. Didi remained defiant, unwilling to give in. Over the following days, the pressure from her mother grew unbearable. Mama began forcing Didi to accompany her to Nnamdi's house, pushing her to spend time with him. Things were moving too fast and Didi felt cornered. Desperate, she finally made up her mind to accept Emma's offer. Together, Ndidi and Emma planned their escape. There was just one condition. Ndidi insisted that Emma not tell his mother about their plan. Why not? Emma asked, puzzled. You know how kind and soft Mama Oka is. If they start looking for me, she might tell them everything Didi explained. Oh, I see. Okay, it's fine. I promise not to tell his soul, Emma assured her. They agreed to meet at the edge of the village, carefully avoiding suspicion by not living together. Ndidi prepared herself, packing a few essential items into a small pot. Before leaving, she gave a quiet farewell to her bedridden father. Then, pretending she was going to fetch water at the village stream, she slipped away without looking back. At the village's edge, Ndidi and Imam met as planned, both in simple disguises. With hopeful hearts and determined spirits, they left the village behind, stepping into an uncertain future together. Getting to his grandfather's village, Onde, 4 villages away from Uzuma, Ima and Ndidi were warmly welcomed. The community embraced them as though they belonged, and Ndidi enrolled in the village's best clothes sewing shop to perfect her craft. Ima, meanwhile, threw himself into working on his grandfather's cocoa farm. Under his grandfather's guidance, he not only learned the trade but also expanded the business. Occasionally, he visited his mother, who often expressed her worry over Ndidi's disappearance. Each time, Ima feigned concern, carefully concealing the truth. 4 months passed and Ndidi had become a skilled craftswoman, ready to start her own business. Emma, proud of her achievements, supported her dreams as she continued building a legacy on the farm. Their bond grew stronger as they quietly built their life together. One evening, under the glow of moonlight, they sat outside their hut, enjoying the peace of the night. Laughter and warm conversation filled the air, but their joy was abruptly interrupted. Out of the shadows emerged Ima's mother carrying a basket of fruits. She froze in shock upon seeing Didi, alive and well, sitting contentedly beside her son. What is happening here? She asked, her voice trembling with disbelief as the basket slipped from her hands. Ima, answer me. What is she doing here? Is this what I'm thinking? Ima and Didi sat frozen in surprise. Their faces pale. Ima tried to explain, stumbling over his words. Mother, we. It's not what it seems. His mother cut him off, her voice rising with a mix of anger and hurt. So you've both been living as if nothing happened. Do you know how much your family has worried over you, Ndidi? How could you both do this? I understand why you felt cornered back then, but running away? Ima, you should know better. Ndidi, her face streaked with tears, pleaded, Mama, please, we didn't mean to hurt anyone. We needed a chance to be together. But Ima's mother's disappointment was palpable. Shaking her head, she said, how am I supposed to face everyone after this? How do I wash myself clean from this shame? First thing tomorrow morning, we are going back to Uzuma, no arguments. With that, she turned and walked briskly into the hut, leaving Ima and Ndidi stunned. As tears spilled down Ndidi's cheeks, Ima wrapped his arms around her, whispering, don't worry, my love, everything will be fine. I'll find a way to make things right. Ndidi clung to him, her heart heavy with fear of what lay ahead. Yet she trusted the man's reassurance, hoping that together they could face whatever was to come. The next morning, Madame Uka returned to the village with Ndidi and Ima. It was late at night when they arrived, and Madame Muka wasted no time, taking them directly to Ndidi's house. Her mother, who had been pacing anxiously, was both overjoyed and furious at the sight of her daughter. How could you do this to us? Her mother shouted, her voice trembling with both relief and anger. After everything we've been through, you just ran away with this boy. Ndidi's mother was inconsolable, and despite Emma and Ndidi's attempts to explain, she refused to listen, eventually chasing them out of the house. Exhausted and heartbroken, Ndidi could only hope for another chance to make things right. The next day, Ndidi returned to her mother alone. To her surprise, her mother seemed calmer, willing to hear her out. Ndidi knelt at her feet, tears streaming down her face. Mama, I'm so sorry, she pleaded. I wasn't thinking. I know I've hurt you. Her mother's eyes softened as she sighed deeply. No, my daughter, it is I who owe you an apology. I shouldn't have pressured you so much. Nancy, however, still bore a sore expression. Do you know what your stubbornness has cost us? She snapped, her words cutting through the room. Do you have any idea? Nancy! Their mother interrupted sharply. Enough. It's all in the past. My daughter is back and she's safe. That is all that matters to me now. Didi broke down, wrapping her arms around her mother, who also began to cry. Mama, I'm so sorry. No, my daughter, her mother whispered, stroking her hair. The fault is mine. It was then that her mother revealed something shocking. And to think, the man I wanted you to marry, Nnamdi, he's dead now. What? Ndidi gasped, pulling back. Nnamdi is dead? Mama, how? Her mother nodded solemnly. Yes, he passed away suddenly, but none of that matters now. What matters is that you are here and we can move forward. Nancy still fuming muttered, it's all your Nancy, her mother interrupted again. This family needs healing, not blame. Be happy your sister is back. Still shaken by the revelation, Ndidi decided to focus on the present. Over the following days, her mother showered her with love, ensuring she felt welcome and forgiving. One day, her mother said warmly, it's time for you and Ima to start preparing for your wedding. No daughter of mine will leave for her husband's house without a proper send off. Tell him to bring his family to formalize the marriage. Ndidi was overjoyed. She quickly informed Emma and Madame Uka, and plans were set in motion. The families met, and the wedding date was fixed. Excitement filled the air as preparations began, and when the wedding day arrived, it was a beautiful celebration of love and unity. Ndidi's family stood proudly by her side, her mother beaming with joy. The couple received countless gifts from friends and family, but one stood out, a stunning ornate mirror gifted by her mother. It was an heirloom of great value, something only royals typically possessed. This is for you, my daughter, her mother said, handing her the mirror. May it always remind you of your worth and the love of your family. Ndidi was deeply touched and held the mirror close, thanking her mother with a grateful heart. She later hung it in her bedroom, treasuring it as a symbol of reconciliation, love, and a new chapter in her life. Life continued, and Ndidi found happiness in her blossoming business, while Emma's cocoa farming enterprise thrived. The couple's love remained strong, but as time went on, they grew concerned about starting a family. Each time Ndidi conceived, she would mysteriously miscarry. The repeated losses weighed heavily on both of them. They sought help from local doctors and traditional healers, but nothing worked. Ndidi's mother, deeply concerned, tried to support her by bringing herbal concoctions and remedies she believed would help. But the miscarriages continued. Each loss brought fresh waves of despair. One day, after yet another miscarriage, Ndidi locked herself in her room, overcome with shame and grief. Ima's mother, Madame Uka, came to visit, determined to care for her daughter-in-law. Entering Ndidi and Ima's bedroom for the first time, Madame Uka froze mid-step, her face draining of color. Suddenly, she ran out of the room in a panic. Ima, who had seen her reaction, rushed to her side. Mama, what happened? He asked, his voice laced with worry. Still shaking and trying to steady her breathing, Madame Uka pointed back towards the bedroom. What is that on your wall? Ima followed her gaze and frowned in confusion. On the wall? Oh, you mean the mirror? It's one of our wedding gifts. Ndidi's mother gave it to us. Madame Uka's face darkened with a mix of fear and anger. Why would she give that to her own child? She muttered, her voice barely above a whisper. Without another word, she hurried out of the house. Mama, wait! Ima called after her, running to catch up. What's going on? What do you mean? It's just a mirror. Madame Uka spun around, her expression grim. Take that thing out of your house now, she said, her voice trembling. Before Ima could question her further, she turned and stormed off, heading straight to Ndidi's mother's house. Ima stood there bewildered, trying to make sense of his mother's reaction. Something about that mirror had clearly terrified her, and Ima knew he needed answers fast. When Madame Uka arrived at Mama Iji's house, she didn't hesitate. Standing in front of the compound, she shouted at the top of her voice, Come outside, you wicked woman! Mama Iji emerged from the house, her face a mark of feigned confusion. Ah, my in-law, why are you causing such a scene? Why all this noise? Madame Uka's voice shook with anger and emotion. Don't pretend. I know what you are doing and you need to stop it now. Mama Iji smirked, crossing her arms. And who will stop me? What power do you think you have to talk to me like this? Tears welled in Mama Uka's eyes. How far will you go? Are you not her mother? What exactly is your problem? Why are you doing this to your own child? Mama Iji's expression hardened as she pointed toward the exit of the compound. Stop shouting in my compound like a mad woman and leave. I'll go, Madame Muka said, her voice steady now. Though her heart burned with determination, but this wickedness has to stop. I will fight it with every drop of blood I have. With that, she turned and stormed off. Mama Ichi watched her leave, then quickly made her way to Mama Namdi's house. She relayed everything Madame Uka had said, her voice filled with panic. Stop worrying, Mama Ndamdi assured her, a slight smile creeping across her lips. She can't do anything. Go home. We'll handle it tonight. Back at Madame Uka's house, Emma paced nervously, waiting for his mother to return. When Madame Uka finally returned, her face was pale and her shoulders sagged with exhaustion. Mama, what's going on? What did you mean earlier? Emma asked, his concern evident. Madame Uka looked at him, her eyes glistening with tears. My son, I made a mistake. I shouldn't have allowed you to marry Ndidi, not after everything I know about her mother. I should have ignored my hopes for you and shut my eyes to our family's evil ways. What are you talking about? Emma asked, bewildered. She sighed deeply, shaking her head. You wouldn't understand, not yet. Go home to your wife. I'll come first thing tomorrow morning, but listen to me carefully. Remove that mirror from your house tonight. Confused but obedient, Emma did as his mother instructed. As he returned home, carrying the honest mirror out of the house and placing it outside the compound, Lady stops him, her face etched with worry. Emma, why are you taking the mirror out? What happened? Did Mama say something? Please talk to me. Emma sets the mirror down and returns to the house. I don't know, Ndidi. Mama says she will explain everything tomorrow. For now, let's try to get some rest. Please, just relax. They both lay down, though Ndidi's mind raced with unease. As the night wore on, she drifted into a deep sleep, but her dreams were anything but peaceful. In her slumber, she thrashed in her sleep, her breath shallow and uneven. Bits of sweat clung to her skin as her dream unfolded like a living nightmare. She was running, her bare feet stumbling over the gnarled roots of a dark, suffocating forest. Behind her, an ominous figure pursued her, a two-headed masquerade with gleaming, bloodied cutlasses in its hands. The heads whispered and growled at her in tones that slithered into her ears, both familiar and utterly alien. She tried to scream for help, but her voice was gone, swallowed by the oppressive silence of the woods. She pushed forwards blindly, the trees whistling and closing around her, her path looping back on itself as though the forest conspired to trap her. And then she broke free. A river stretched out before her, its waters black as oil and utterly still. It offered no promise of salvation, only an end. She turned, breathless and trembling, and saw the masquerade emerge from the shadows, its two faces illuminated by the ghostly light of the moon. The figure paused, tilting his head as if savoring her fear. Ndidi's knees buckled as hopelessness clawed at her chest. Cornered, she took an instinctive step toward the river, ready to dive in and risk the unknown depths. But then the still waters began to churn violently, waves rising unnaturally high. A sound erupted from the river, laughter. At first low and guttural, it quickly grew louder, echoing all around her. Ndidi stumbled back, her eyes wide with horror as two figures began to rise from the water. Shrouded in shadows and dripping with black, they stepped closer until the light revealed glimpses of their face. Her breath hissed as the truth hit her like a blow. Nancy! Mama! She whispered hoarsely, the name stumbling from her lips as though dragged out against her will. The figures didn't respond, they only laughed louder, the sound inhuman and jagged, cutting through her like shards of glass. They moved toward her, their twisted smiles spreading unnaturally wide. Ndidi's legs gave out and she fell to the ground, her mind a chaotic blur of shock and terror. Just as they reached her, the dream shattered. She bolted awake, gasping for air, her body trembling and slick with sweat. The room was dark, but the nightmare clung to her like a shroud, its echoes still rattling in her skull. Beside her, she caught the faint silhouette of her husband sitting upright, his face a pale mark of shock and fear. Tears streamed silently down his cheeks and his trembling lips as he said, I thought you were dead, as he hugged her close. Ndidi's pulse raced as a new fear took root. Whatever had haunted her dreams hadn't stayed behind. It was here, now, in the room with them. The morning air was thick with tension as Madame Uka led Ima and Ndidi toward her family's compound, carrying a mysterious keg of water. Ndidi, confused and anxious, kept glancing at her husband, who also seemed uncertain about what lay ahead. When they arrived, Madame Uka called out loudly, Mama Iji, come out, you wicked woman. Startled, Mama Iji emerged from the house, her face wrinkling in annoyance. Who is shouting my name so early in the morning? Ah, it's you. My in-law, what are you doing here at this hour? Before anyone could respond, Madam Uka poured the contents of the keg on Mama Iji. The water drenched her and she immediately collapsed to the ground, writhing in pain. Ha! What have you done to me? You mad woman, Mama Iji screamed, clutching her chest and rolling on the dusty ground. Everyone froze in shock. Didi rushed towards to help her mother, but Madam Uka blocked her path. Don't touch her, let her confess her deeds. Ima, still shunned by the dramatic scene, asked, Mama, what is going on here? Nancy, who had been preparing to leave for her shop, ran out of the house at the sound of the commotion. What's happening here? What have you people done to my mother? She demanded, glaring at Ndidi as though she were to blame. Mama Eji, still written, managed to cry out, Nancy, go and call Mama Namdi quickly. Nancy dashed off toward Mama Namdi's house, while Madam Uka stood firm, her voice calm but resolute. Yesterday you asked what power I have. This water is just ordinary water, prayed over with the word of God. Your wickedness ends today. She began praying fervently, speaking in tongues as the scene unfolded. Ndidi now crying turned to her mother. Mama, what is she talking about? What is going on? Mama Iji refused to answer, groaning in agony instead. The villagers started to gather, wondering what happened. Nancy returned moments later, alone and breathless. Mama, she's not coming. What do you mean she's not coming? Did you tell her what's happened? I did, but she said it's not her fight. Mama Eji groaned in despair. Why would she abandon me now when I need her the most? Madam Uka laughed coldly. She won't come because she knows the power I carry. The God I serve is greater than the devil she serves. You might as well confess everything now. The only mercy you will get is from him. Nancy, frightened and desperate, turned to her mother. Mama, talk. Please, don't die like this. Mama Eji, unable to bear the pain any longer, finally broke. I'll confess. Please, just make it stop. Through sobs, she began to reveal the dark truth. I was initiated by Mama Namdi. She promised me power, wealth, and the ability to protect my family. But it came at a price. I had to make a blood sacrifice. I used your father, Ndidi. I made him seek to gain freedom and control. I. You did what? Ndidi screamed, falling to the ground in shock. The villagers who had gathered gasped in horror, murmuring among themselves. Nancy, overcome by the tension and seeing her mother writhing in pain, began to shake uncontrollably. She screamed, tears streaming down her face. Please don't let her die. She turned towards the villagers, her voice trembling. Yes, it's true. Mama initiated me as well. She promised that together we'd be unstoppable, that we'll protect our family and gain everything we ever wanted. But there was a condition, a price. What price? One of the elders demanded, his face dark with fury. Nancy hesitated, looking at her mother, who groaned in pain. Then she burst out. Any man who wanted to marry me had to be sacrificed for the coven's power. That's how Mama gained her position of influence. Didi's father was her first offering. The villagers gasped in unison, their faces etched with shock and horror. Nancy, trembling and weeping, tried to continue her confession. But it didn't stop there, she said, her voice breaking under the weight of the truth. Mama Namdi, she had already used her son Namdi for a sacrifice. That's why he was useless. He wandered aimlessly, drinking and wasting away because his soul had been tied to the coven's power. The villagers murmured in shock, their anger boiling. Nancy swallowed hard, her eyes darting to her mother, who lay groaning on the ground. It was getting close to the time when the coven was going to completely end him, take his life to fulfill the deal, but his mother, desperate to save him, struck a new bargain with Mama. Mama Eji, still written, let out a guttural cry, but Nancy pressed on. She promised Mama that if Ndidi married Nnamdi, they would use her virginity, her womb, as the exchange for his life. The plan was for Ndidi to bear a child, but that child's life would be offered to save Nnamdi. In return, Mama would become the coven's second in command, a position of immense power. Gasps erupted from the crowd. Many villagers covered their mouths, unable to believe the depths of wickedness being revealed. What? Ndidi shrieked, her voice breaking. She turned to her mother, her face contorted with pain. You were willing to sacrifice me, my future, my children? Amaiji wailed, unable to look her daughter in the eye. Nancy sobbed harder. When you ran away, Ndidi, their plan fell apart. Namdi died because the ritual to save him couldn't be completed. Mama Namdi was furious. She blamed Mama for failing and had her demoted in the coven. As punishment, the coven demanded another sacrifice. every child you would ever try to bring into this world. That's why Mama gave you that mirror, to watch you, to make sure no child of yours would live. The villagers exploded into an uproar. Some shouted curses at Mama Ije while others stared at Ndidi with pity and sorrow. Ndidi, shaking with rage and grief, clenched her fists. You betrayed me, you cost my life, my future, everything. You and Mama Namdi. How could you do this, Mama? Why? Mama Ije, written in agony from the holy water, croaked out. It was the only way to protect this family, to give us power, to survive. Madam Uka stepped forward, her voice commanding. Power? Protection? At the expense of your own flesh and blood? You call this survival? You destroyed lives for greed and ambition. You have no one to blame but yourselves for the misery you now face. Nancy, still on her knees, reached out toward her sister. Ndidi, please. I was trapped. I didn't know how to stop it. I'm so sorry. But Ndidi backed away, her face pale with disbelief. Sorry? You are sorry? After everything? My children, my future. She collapsed to the ground, sobbing. Ima rushed to hold her, his face tight with anger and sorrow. The village elders, now burning with fury, spoke in union. Mama Ije and Nancy, your wickedness has brought shame and suffering upon this community. Your crimes are unforgivable. By the authority of this council, you are both banished from this land, effective immediately. You are to leave now and never return. Nancy screamed, clinging to her mother, who continued to groan in pain. Please, give us another chance. But the villagers were resolute. With shouts and jeers, they drove the two women from the village. Mama Namdi, having learned of Mama Ije's confession, attempted to flee in fear, but she was apprehended by the enraged villagers and publicly punished by being set ablaze. With the intervention of the villagers' prayers and Madam Oka's prayer water, Ndidi's father recovered from his mysterious illness, much to everyone's relief. Ndidi and Ima decided to return to Ede village to start a new chapter of their lives, leaving behind the pain and betrayal of the past. Mama Ije and Nancy wandered aimlessly in the wilderness, their once secure lives reduced to endless suffering and regret. Each step in the desolate forest reminded them of their wicked choices and the heavy price they paid for them. For Ndidi and Ima, their new beginnings symbolize hope and the triumph of grace over darkness as they rebuilt their lives with faith, love, and resilience. Thank you for watching.